This is episode 107 on the Live Blissed Out podcast. Did you know that there are roughly 17 sugar packets in a 20-ounce bottle of soda? Hello, action taker. Welcome to Live Blissed Out, a podcast where I have inspirational and informational conversations with business owners and subject matter experts to help you get the scoop on a variety of topics. Tired of hesitating or making decisions without having the big picture? Want to be in the know? Then this is the place to go. I'm your host, Marissa Houston, helping you achieve bliss through awareness and action. So let's get to it. In this episode, Judy Hahn helps us understand how sugar affects our health. Judy is a recovering sugar addict, emotional eater, and someone who brought herself back from the brink of a nervous breakdown caused by the stress of her corporate job. Today, she is known as the It's Not All in Your Head health expert, who helps high-performing women go from feeling funky to feeling fabulous. She does that by puzzle piecing their symptoms together to discover the root cause of their dis-ease. Her clients experience abundant energy and laser-sharp focus in just a few short months, thanks to their collaboration with Judy. They begin to thrive instead of survive, get comfortable again in their bodies, and stop feeling left out from all the fun that others are having. Judy is a national board-certified health coach trained in functional medicine who works virtually with her clients. She is the person to talk to if you want to get back to living your best life. Visit hanholistichealth.com to learn more. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice. Judy, thank you for being on the show.
Marissa, I have been so looking forward to this conversation. You provide such a wonderful service by having the variety of people on that you have. I've listened to many of your podcasts. Thank you so much for offering me this opportunity.
Oh, Judy, it's my pleasure, and thank you for being here, for sharing what you're going to share with us. One of the things I'm so grateful for is the opportunity to talk to people like you, small business people who have so much passion and so much knowledge. I would love it if you could set the stage for us and tell our listeners what we're going to be talking about and how we plan to help them.
Given my background, people would normally think that I'm going to talk about health and wellness. And in a way, I am. But this is really my story because I was a child who was brought up by my parents, of course, one of them, who everything revolved around sugar. I'm 69 now, so you know that kind of oatmeal that was offered to me when I was a kid was that white pasty stuff. Well, my father tried to get me to eat oatmeal by taking a Hershey bar and shaving it on top of the oatmeal. Now, I have to say he failed because even the Hershey bar wasn't enough to make me want to eat that white paste from grade school. But that is really something that I have now taken in my practice and really am focusing on as my big project for people, because I realize where our society is, and more importantly, the people my age, because so many people are used to going to the doctor. They're used to taking medication. They're used to having that as their answer, which I'm not saying is right, but their children and their children's children, they need to be offered a different outcome of their lives. We used to talk about type 2 diabetes. It used to be called adult onset diabetes, but now it is called type 2 diabetes because so many children have it. And once I saw that, and I saw that in some of my clients, I realized that I could have a huge impact by helping these parents see how they could change their lives and then have what I call the trickle-down effect. I've seen these people, they've written to me, they've told me that it wasn't just about me. It changed the entire life of my family. In this particular family that I'm thinking of, the kids have thinned down some. They had a garden this year. I've seen things change. And so I hope that this conversation about sugar and about how, unfortunately, it controls us so much will help perhaps give anybody the impetus to change some of the things they do, not only for themselves, but to change their children's lives for the better.
I was just thinking as you were saying that change starts with awareness. I think what happens is that we are living in a society where from a very early age, going back to your story with your dad and the oatmeal, we are used to eating processed foods. Think about it. In your neighborhood, when you hear the little ice cream truck come by and the music's playing and all these wonderful memories of popsicles and ice cream and donuts and all that stuff that we consider happy food is packed with sugar. And that is the first memory that we have because our parents want to spoil us when we're kids. And it's all about we're going on vacation, eat as much ice cream as you want, eat as much snacks as you want. And when that association happens, we carry that over into our adult life and we don't know how to separate it anymore because it almost feels like when you tell yourself you can't have that, you associate it with punishment. I can't enjoy life anymore because I can't have all those wonderful things that I remember made me happy.
If we look back to when I was a kid, we didn't have so much processed food. In the 50s and 60s, that's not where it came from. And I think also one of the things that people probably don't know is that at one point in time, there was this big debate about what was a bigger risk for heart disease. Was it fat or was it sugar? I can't remember whether it was Australia and the United States, but there were two sides to this. And at some point, there was an answer given, and it was that fat was the bad guy. So that changed the entire current of our lives. Because it was after that all of a sudden, all these foods came out that were fat-free, low-fat. And what happens is when you try to make something low-fat, that takes away flavor. And so what do? They add more sugar. I gained 10 pounds on fat-free cookies. Why? Because they weren't any healthier. They had more sugar in them. And so that's been the trajectory of our society. And I believe the basis for this thing that has happened, not just in the United States, but I think it's happening worldwide, that obesity and diabetes is really taken over the lives of our people.
And there's a mental piece to that as well, Judy. What happens is when you're eating that box of crackers or whatever you love having from the store, that processed food, it's saying non-fat. So in your mind, you're going, oh, it's non-fat, so this can't be bad for me. So I'm just going to eat the whole box. The other side of that as well is I don't think most people are aware of how much sugar is hidden in every processed package that's out there.
Yeah, one of my other things is gluten-free. And I always talk to people and try to explain just because a box says that it's gluten-free doesn't mean it's healthy. You have to learn how to read labels. I have a document. If you want, I can send it to you and you can attach it to the podcast. It's a document, 61 names for sugar. And that's not a complete list either. Part of the problem is that the way people live their lives, so you go and you stop and you get that fancy coffee thing at the coffee shop, and then maybe you're trying to be good so you don't have a candy bar mid-morning when you're hungry, so you go to the cafeteria, you have a bagel and a glass of orange juice, and then you didn't pack anything for lunch, so you go to the sub shop and you have a big soda and chips with that 12-inch sub. If you take all of those things, you've had over 100 teaspoons of sugar, and the day hasn't even been half over.
Exactly. There's also the situation where people, for example, are working in front of their computers or watching TV and they binge eat. You'll get that little pint of ice cream, for example, if we're lucky, it's a pint.
I was just going to say, what do you mean a pint? Come on, let's go quart here.
Even then, think about how much sugar you just consumed if you had that entire pint in one sitting. Just a little pint. It adds up really, really fast. And then, of course, we're talking about adding sugar, like you said, to coffee, to tea, anything that you basically have.
Well, the syrups that they add at different coffee shops to flavor your coffee for you, that's just all sugar water.
Exactly. You have no idea that you've absorbed that much in one day, and your body just isn't designed to do that. If sugar were okay and it did not impact us in any way negative, we would just have tubs of it all day long because everybody loves sugar.
We love sugar because it tastes good, right? We know that. Here's the reality of it, and people do not understand. Sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine, and it really lights up the same reward centers in the brain that cocaine does. And so you get that kind of warm, fuzzy comfort food kind of feeling, that, I feel so much better after you eat it. One would be legal and one would be illegal. Here's an example. My mother-in-law was in a nursing home years ago, had dementia, and I went to visit. I went to leave, and she started to fold the blanket on her lap. And I was like, Mom, where are you going? She was like, with you. And so I tried to come up with every reason under the sun. No, Mom, you can't come because I got to go do this. And no, you'll drop me off at the house, which had been sold a year before. And I saw a nurse, and he said to me, you just have to leave. So eventually I got enough guts up and I said goodbye and I left, and he stayed so that she couldn't come after me. I got in my car. I started it. I was hysterical, crying and crying. And I tried calling 2 of my friends, got voicemail. And I started to drive home, and I got to an intersection. I said to myself, oh, I know there's a Walgreens across the street. So as the light changed, I pulled in and I went up and down the aisles. And I was so proud of myself because I thought, I'm not going to have a candy bar because I know if I have a candy bar, I'm just going to want another candy bar. Nope, I'm going to be really good. Well, I get to the end and there's double stuffed Oreo cookies. So I buy the bag, I get in the car, I eat one cookie. And just like I said a minute ago, I went, oh my God, I feel so much better now. On the way home, I finished the bag. And later I'm talking to my sister, who is a person who can eat one piece of candy or one cookie. And she said to me, I don't understand. Can you explain to me? If one cookie made you feel so good, why would you continue? And I said, well, I guess I thought if one made me feel so good, imagine what the whole bag would make me feel like. I don't even know that I tasted them. It was sugar. I was feeling better. It was a fix. And I've never forgotten that.
It's like this burst of wonderfulness.
Yeah, well, that's dopamine. That's the happy hormone in your brain that's released when you have it. It gives us a false sense of happy. It gives us a false sense of calm. But what happens, and the unfortunate thing is, what goes up must come down. You've got this sense of calm about you, and you're feeling good. The blood sugar is high, and then all of a sudden, it comes crashing down. And who knows what the response will be. I know for me, personally, when I was totally a sugar addict, I would get depressed. I would have crying fits. I'd be anxious. And then, not even realizing it, I had to change that. So what did I do? I went and ate more candy or ice cream or whatever it was. And then you go on this roller coaster where your blood sugar is up and down. You know that 3:00 slump that they talk about in the afternoon?
Yes, you get all this energy and then you drop. And as you were saying that, I was also circling back into what the consumption of sugar needs to be. And I'm on a website called healthline.com.
Oh, yeah, good site.
And here's what they say. The average person consumes 77 grams of sugar a day. For men, the recommended amount should be roughly 38 grams a day. And for women, we should shoot for 25 grams. Now, to give you an idea, 37 or 38 grams equals 9 teaspoons. And for women, 25 grams is about 6 teaspoons. They're also indicating then that the kinds of things that are going to happen if you have way too much sugar will equate to things like obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancers, tooth decay, and fatty liver disease, to name a few.
I think that the fatty liver disease is something that people don't understand. And it's so interesting with what I do. I'll talk to people and they'll say, well, I'm fine. And then I went to the doctor and the doctor now says I have diabetes. It was like yesterday I was fine and today I have diabetes. Well, the fact is that physiologically, the body creates that diabetic state about 10 years before you are actually diagnosed with diabetes.
Yes, it doesn't happen overnight, but most people don't know that.
Right. It's one of those really hard things because you feel like you're being deprived if you can't have things. Working with one of my clients, I had asked her something about, okay, well, when this terrible situation occurs or something similar to it occurs, what reward would you like to have so that you feel joy, you feel better? And she said, oh, I've got this great recipe. And she told me about this flatbread recipe. I shouldn't have been taken aback, but I was because I was so totally in a different place than she was. So I said, what would give you that same sense of joy that was not food related? And it really took a long time for her to come up with anything. And so I requested that she come up with a break the glass in case of emergency list. And what that is anything that would make her feel as good as eating a piece of candy would, but that it didn't have anything to do with food. Walking on the beach with somebody, having a cup of coffee with somebody, meditating, breathing, a variety of things. But it was so interesting because I had passed that point myself. So it didn't occur to me that that's what she was going to come up with was this flatbread. We actually have to educate people on how to be able to find something to make you happy that isn't food.
Yeah, because food is so tied to our memories, to everything about us, right? In fact, it's a universal language. When you go to somebody's house, first thing they want to do is feed you their food because they want to show you love. It's a way we express, appreciation and love to each other. Let's say you were having like a football party in your house. The first thing you think of is, oh, I need chicken wings and potatoes and all of these things that you associate, because again, everything ties to food. Same with holidays, birthdays, everything like that. You're absolutely right. I think it starts with awareness to say, what can I do that's not related to food that's still going to make me happy? But then on top of that, also looking at enjoying food in a different way, because there's so many wonderful foods that are not packed with sugar that you can enjoy and start to really appreciate. I hear it all the time. People say, once I started eating more vegetables in the beginning, I was like, oh, it's so boring, a salad or whatever. But then you start to learn how to cook vegetables and do things with them that are healthy and still delicious. And then you start to ask yourself, wow, what took me so long? I didn't realize this was so yummy. It's retraining your brain and not thinking that you're being punished. Also realizing that you're not going to eliminate sugar completely. And fruit obviously has sugar. And you want to have that in moderation, but at the same time, it's still good sugar, not the processed sugar that we see in a lot of these packaged foods.
Most of us, I think, probably don't realize that table sugar is both glucose and fructose. Fructose is, of course, what we associate with fruit. I think people, if they were to just experiment, be curious, try a week, a couple of weeks without sugar. Don't even go for I'm not eating it anymore. Just play with that whole concept. You know how the Europeans often have a piece of fruit after their meal for their dessert? Well, when I went through this process of removing sugar from my life, I was keeping, I think they're called Altufo mangoes. They're the small yellow ones. And I said to my husband, why don't we have a mango after dinner and see what that's like? And it was just like magic. it was always tasty, but having given up sugar at that time, it was amazing how more alive my taste buds were, and that all the vegetables and the fruits and everything had a much richer and sweeter taste on their own. They weren't stunted by the years of the sugar that I had had before. One of the things I tell people is that if they want to eat fruit, they should stay in the berry family because the berries are the lowest in sugar. And I'm speaking because I had a series of blood work done for myself and found that I was myself pre-diabetic. So at 69, I said, this is ridiculous. How can I be pre-diabetic? Well, it was a combination of my sugar addiction and high stress, because people don't realize that without eating any sugar at all, somebody can actually create diabetes for themselves by their stress level. It's a complicated scientific process, but it can still create that same issue. So what I learned to do was go for fruit. Well, I started with strawberries, some blueberries, things I didn't eat a lot of, and I didn't really want a lot of them. But one of the things that I learned was instead of just having an apple, which we all know an apple a day keeps the doctor away, it sounds like it should be the healthiest thing around. If you take that apple and you combine it with protein or fat, it reduces the effect of the sugar that's in the fruit because it's metabolized much slower in combination. With me, I usually have an apple and some raw almond butter, and I'm a happy camper. It's a nice treat for me. So this fruit is better partially because it has fiber. That helps slow it down. Where when I was talking before about a bagel and a glass of orange juice, that is basically all sugar. And how many oranges were used to make that glass of orange juice? So the amount of sugar that the person is eating without any fiber to kind of slow down the processes, that is really not a good thing. I think just a bagel by itself is something like, I can't remember if it was 62 grams of sugar, something ridiculous like that. And then you add a big glass of orange juice and it's like, no, I don't think so. You just spiked your blood sugar.
When we're saying fruit, we're saying in moderation, like, have a little handful of blueberries. What happens is when we think fruit, we're thinking these juices. You get your big blender and then you throw in a bunch of different things that are packed with sugar in the fruit, and then you mix them all up, and then you have this big tub, and that's not good. And especially the false sense of security when you go and you buy like a bottle of lemonade or orange juice or whatever, because those things are packed with sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people fruit juice, take it off the list. You're really not getting much from it except for the sugar that you're getting from it.
People really need to start reading labels. Just go through everything in your pantry right now, for example, and just look at the nutrition labels and just focus on sugar. Just see how many grams are in there. Just start with that. Like you said, I think it's really important, Judy, that we go through baby steps. And telling yourself that tomorrow I'm going to start and I'm never going to have sugar again, I don't think that that's a realistic expectation for most people, especially since we're also exposed to holidays and events where everybody expects you to eat that cupcake and have a slice of pie or cake or eat that ice cream. Trying to just be aware of it and then looking at the labels and starting to switch things around and start making wiser choices for yourself is a step in the right direction.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You don't want to do crazy things like I do. I had an awakening. I saw my blood work. I needed to see that to realize what the sugar addiction that I've had on and off since I was a kid was actually doing to the inside of my body. And one of my big fears is Alzheimer's and dementia. People probably don't know, but it's been at least 10 years that they call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. And that scared me. It took my learning more about health and wellness. It took my going into functional medicine to really understand the mechanics in the body and understand that just because I don't feel like I have diabetes today doesn't mean that I'm not setting the stage for it 5 or 10 years from now. And inflammation is caused in the body by sugar. Cancer cells in particular thrive on sugar. Everybody's got cancer cells. Whether they're active or not is a whole different issue. Those kind of pieces of knowledge for me personally, whether it does anything for other people, spurred me on to really get a grip on myself and say, okay, you're 69, you've played with this sugar addiction all your life. There's been some brain fog, there's been some emotional stuff. So the emotional stuff kicked off my wanting sugar, but then the sugar would kick off these crying fits. I never put all that together before. It was a good friend of mine who said to me one day, "Did you just have a quart of ice cream or something?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, you're crying hysterically, and every time you have sweets like that, you get like crazy."
Yeah, like an emotional roller coaster.
I wasn't even aware of it.
Exactly. And unfortunately, Judy, most people don't really address an issue until they're faced with something like a diagnosis that they know is really there. The doctor tells them, this is now what you have and this is what you're dealing with, and you have to change things or it's not going to look good for you. And that's the only time people start to go, okay, well, now I guess it's now in front of me and now I got to do something about it. And what we're saying is it would be really nice if we could even help one person not get to that point. If we could even get somebody to say, look, maybe I'm inspired now. How about I just start to apply good practices in my life so that I don't have to deal with that situation in the future? And if we can accomplish that, that would be the most wonderful thing we can expect when we're talking about awareness, because I really believe that part of it is denial, but part of it too is that people just don't realize what's in there and they're not reading labels and they're just eating whatever. You know, they go to an aisle and they say, throw those chips, throw those things in my cart, not realizing what that means. Start with that awareness, start with looking at labels and start to try and change things going forward.
When you go grocery shopping, in order to be helpful in this process, is to realize that if you avoid all the center areas, that's the processed foods. Stay to the perimeter. That's usually the fruits and vegetables, the meat, the dairy, all the things that are better for you. So that's one of the baby steps you can take, is try to challenge yourself to stay on the perimeter of the grocery store when you're shopping.
I love it. That's a great place to start because I know at the end of the day, Judy, we all want to live long, happy, healthy lives. That's something universal that we all want to get at. And it starts with that. We need to start really getting serious, especially as we age. You know, our bodies just can't keep up like we did when we were younger. You know, it didn't impact as much. We know that even kids are being impacted now worse than they've ever been. In fact, I think I heard some news lately that because of COVID, kids now are heavier than they've ever been. There's a lot going on that we have to deal with. If we can make little changes that are going to help us feel better and live longer, that's all we want to strive for. I really appreciate this, Judy, because this is a place to start for our listeners to get motivated and hopefully feel better about what they put in their bodies. It's really important.
I want people to start thinking about eating to live rather than living to eat. That is something that is very important, and you understand that it is fuel that you're putting in your body. The function of it is to help you go through your day and do all the things you want in the best and the happiest ways. So 3 meals a day, try to have 15 to 20 grams of protein at each meal with some vegetables as well. Remove some of those sugary kinds of cereals and things and make those changes little. You don't have to go and get rid of everything. One other thing that I think that people have a tendency, we confuse hunger sometimes for thirst. It's an odd thing, but if you find that you're going to grab some food, have a glass of water. and wait just a little bit and see how you feel. Sometimes it's that you're tired and that your body needs to be hydrated more. And that hunger that you thought you had will go away. It's quite amazing. And the reason I bring these things up, I'm a nationally board certified health and wellness coach, and I'm trained in functional medicine. It means that I work with people who do not feel the way they think they should feel, or that they've gone to the doctor has looked at their blood work and said, oh, based on this, you're fine, and the person feels lousy. We want to look at a person's life, help them based on their lifestyle, how they eat, what they eat, their sleeping habits, meditation, breathing, everything that will get to the root cause of why they don't feel good. So if you have indigestion and the doctor says to you, oh, just take that pill, it'll make you feel better. That's what I call the what medicine of Western medicine. In other words, what do you have? Oh, you've got indigestion. What do you take? Oh, take the pill. Where someone like myself, I call it the medicine of why. Now, I am non-medical, so let me state that. You have indigestion? Oh, gee, let's figure out why and get rid of it. So in other words, we will discover, is it a food sensitivity? Is it that you're eating too fast? Is it a problem with dairy? We don't know what it is, but let's figure out why you don't feel good and make a change. Sometimes they're little itty bitty changes, but they'll add up to some big change so you really feel good. You get your energy back. You start to feel good in your body. Instead of people who feel like they're just surviving, they're going to start to thrive because they're learning, being educated, inspired, and empowered to take control of their own health and work in collaboration with me to change the state of their body. Functional medicine doesn't always make sense to people, but the fact that we want to figure out why you have something and then get to the root of it so that you don't have it anymore, rather than mask it with medication.
All of this isn't easy, but it's simple. It can be done. You just need to commit to it. You need somebody like you to help you figure out what the causes are of what you're feeling and what you're going through so that then you can come up with a plan of action that is tailored to your needs.
Everything I do is customized because every body is different. I got such a kick out of your bringing up awareness as a first step of things, because my formula on my website is awareness plus action plus accountability equals the transformation that you're seeking. And so I too am totally in harmony with your idea. You can't change something until you know what's going on, you're aware of it. And then you need to take action, but you need that accountability, not for somebody to say, oh, don't do that, because that's not my job, but to be there as a support, a mentor, a cheerleader to help you achieve your goals, because it's your health. It's not my health.
You've got to want it. It's like anything else. When you're out to do a goal, like let's say you wanted to run a marathon, you're not just going to wake up one day and all of a sudden run the marathon and win. It takes work. And the reason you put work into it is because that goal matters to you. So you have to be mentally ready to say, I want to change things for whatever reason. And then when you're ready to do that, the tools are there to be able to benefit from it.
On my website, you'll see on many of the pages that you can schedule. It's called a Focused on Fabulous You session. And that's 30 minutes of chatting with me about your health goals. And you'll see, if you happen to do that, that there's a series of questions that I ask. Because when someone is committed to helping another person, they need to know that the person who has the goals is more committed than they are in order for it to work.
Exactly. It has to be their decision, something they want to do, and then you're just a tool to help them get there. You're partnering with them to help them make it happen. We can't convince people, and nor do we want to. And that's why I think awareness is a big word we both really appreciate. We're giving people a different lens, a different way to look at things that they might have not seen before. And then it's up to them to decide what's right for them.
There's an old saying, and I have no idea where it came from. It's a man convinced against his will be of the same opinion still.
That's true. That's a really good saying.
I always think about it because I get so passionate talking to people about what we can do to help them get healthy. And yet I have to back up and remind myself that I can't want this more for them than they want it. So I always remember, I let that little poem go through my head and say, okay, you give the people the option. Here's what we can do. If you're interested, I'm here and I'm for you.
Could you tell us how listeners can get a hold of you and learn more about the services you offer?
My website is Hahn Holistic Health. That's 3 H's. HahnHolisticHealth.com. I can be reached via Instagram. My handle is the Gut Health Geek, and I can be reached via phone as well, 414-678-1032. If you have questions and you just really feel like you want to talk to somebody about what the possibilities are, what can you do other than take medication? And mind you, I cannot say don't take medication, but I can help you work with your doctor. So if that's your goal, then we can always work towards that together with your medical professional. And there's a magazine, if anybody's interested, if you go to my Facebook business page, which is also Hahn Holistic Health, there is a link to a digital magazine called Best Holistic Life, and I write for that magazine.
I am just so grateful that you were here to share this with us today. Thank you, Judy.
Thanks, Marissa. This was so fun.
That's a wrap for this episode of Live Blissed Out. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Judy Hahn for joining us on the show. If you have a question or comment for a future episode, all you have to do is go to speakpipe.com/LBOVM or click the link in the show notes to leave a brief audio message. If you find value in our show, please visit liveblисsedout.com to reach out, subscribe, and share on social media. This show is made possible through listeners like you. Thank you. So long for now, and remember to keep moving forward.